We all remember that Chairman Mao said that freedom comes from the end of a gun. That's what George Bush does, you know. Freedom comes from the end of a gun. Freedom by war. That sounds like George Orwell, not George Bush.
To me, what would most people do? I mean, you know, you have another country invading your country. There's no clear objectives, there's no purpose to why they're here, to why they're there. They know we're there to take down Saddam Hussein, but to them, they just want you out of your country. You have their houses being raided and tore up. You have their sons and their husbands getting killed. Then you have them retaliating back, which causes chaos like there is there now. I don't think personally it's terrorists. No, it's not terrorists. It's the farmers and the fathers, the mothers, the children that are trying to fight for what they have, because that's all they do have.
The Pentagon says that in the 42 days of the Gulf War, there were 110,000 U.S. military sorties against Iraq. And they dropped 88,500, or maybe 400, 88,400 tons of explosives during that period of time. That's a sortie every 30 seconds. The explosive equivalent is 7.5 times the bomb that incinerated Hiroshima, which is not just 7.5 places. It's scattered all over the country, and it was targeting many of the facilities that civilian life is most dependent on. Take water supply, which second to air is the thing that we can last least long without. And they hit the reservoirs up in the north, big dams. They hit the pipelines that would bring the water down. It'd be gravity flow sometimes for a while. And then they hit the pumping stations, because lower Iraq particularly is very flat. They hit the filtration plants where you purify the water so it'll be good. So that when I went in on the 2nd of February, 1991, there was no running water anywhere. If you were lucky and lived out in the countryside, you might have a well, you might have an electric generator, and you could pump water out of it. But in Basra and Samarra and Baghdad, none of the places had any running water at that time, because we knocked out all the electricity as well as, and people were going down to the Tigris and getting water. You get thirsty pretty quick, and there wasn't bottled water available for the vast majority of the population. Even in the hospitals there wasn't enough bottled water. You'd have an infant dehydrating, and they can dehydrate quickly, and the mother's suffering from malnutrition because the sanctions had been in effect since August. Maybe not malnutrition, but she just doesn't have a lot to eat. And 2 weeks into the war, there's even less because you couldn't distribute the food. And so you've got to feed your baby, and you don't have milk, you don't have powdered milk or infant formula. So you get some water and you take some sugar and you give it to the baby, and the baby 48 hours is dehydrated and dead. I talked with the head of the Red Crescent, who was of all things, he was a pediatrician, trained as a pediatrician, trained in England as a pediatrician, but he'd become the head of the Red Crescent, which is the equivalent of the Red Cross in Arab countries. And he said as of about the 8th or 9th of February, which is roughly halfway through the bombing, maybe not quite, that he thought probably 6,000 children had died already as a direct result of bad water and related effects of the bombing.
I was in the Sinui Triangle, which you have, it's basically like a triangle that goes from Baghdad and it goes straight west, then it goes up to the north a little bit, and it's on the Syrian border. Most of it runs across the Euphrates River because there they have their water. It's good places to populate. You have Fallujah, you have Ramadi, you have Al-Kahim, you have Habani and Chaldea, which are all basically on Highway 10 going straight to the west of Syria. To me, we started a lot of the violence ourselves, you know, as American soldiers we did. When you go into combat, they have regulations and rules that you're supposed to abide by. Basically, you're told if you think somebody throws a rock, then you shoot them, because what if it was a grenade? So basically, you're covering yourself. I mean, that's what they want you to do. For one, you're doing on a traffic control point where you have to pull everybody and check for contraband and stuff. And like I said, you know, when I was there, they didn't have to go signs in Arabic saying you need to stop here to be checked. all it was you're putting your hand out like this or you're just waving them down to stop. Well, the first time that it happened, it was actually, I was in the front because I was the one checking the vehicles, and then it's our platoon. So like one armored personnel carrier's here, one's here, one's here. And the traffic sort of does like a S through it or whatever. Well, you have a car coming up and just all hell broke loose is the way we considered it. The ground started shaking, all you hear is gunfire. So I dropped to the ground like most of us did because we thought we were the ones getting attacked. But as what actually happened is there was a car that just started coming through without stopping. And when we all got back there, it was a man and his child in there. The man's completely, he's about dismembered all over. You have the kid there, so we all felt bad for it because we patched their wounds up as quick as we could, put them in the back of our tanks and hauled as fast as we could to a hospital. And then after that point, we never had instances like that because I think all of us learned that you can't just do it because you can, You don't want to do it unless you really have to do that. And of course, they're like, well, what if a car bomb's in there and they just, do a suicide bomb to you? I guess they'll have to take that chances because I don't see this reason of killing 1,000 people for that one chance that it might happen.
On Hiroshima Day, which implies at least an insensitivity to human suffering, the United Nations Security Council, but at the insistence of the United States, my own country, imposed the most severe sanctions ever imposed on a country against Iraq, August the 6th of 1990. And those sanctions remained pretty much in effect. There was an authorization in 96, 97 of food for oil. Never worked very well. But they remained in effect up until shock and awe, which is a terrorist phrase when you think about it. I mean, we're going to shock you and place you in awe. And they were genocidal, unbelievable. UNICEF made a study in August, completed it in August of 1991, and reported that 47,500 children under the age of 5 are dead as a direct result of the sanctions. In September or October of 1996, the Food and Agriculture Organization completed a major study in which they said 585,000 children under the age of 5 have died as a direct result of the sanctions. Now, that doesn't include elderly who are vulnerable. It doesn't include people with special medical problems. I mean, if you had diabetes or something in which you needed regular medication, or you needed dialysis or whatever it was, or you die, you were dead because you couldn't get medicine for your diabetes. You couldn't get for your kidney problem. You couldn't get the dialysis machine. And then so the elderly and pregnant women and nursing mothers need more nutrition, and they're likely to need more types of medication. So before the beginning of the war of aggression on March 19th, 2003, more than 1.5 million people had died as a direct result of the sanctions, and more than half were children under the age of 5. It's genocide, clearly.